It's just a public service announcement. Allow me to reintroduce myself. My name is Ho. H to the O.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? We're back with Pro Sports Takes, and the NFL season is entering the second half, which only means one thing. We're getting closer to the Super Bowl. And when it comes to the big game, there's some things the viewers need to know about, the factors that we consider when it comes to a team that can really be capable of winning it all. For me, at least, I look at the quarterback, the coach, the defense, and the team's playoff experience. That's really the four main criteria that usually decides who ends up being crowned the champs. There's only one team now that actually has a quarterback, coach, a defense together that not only has playoff experience, but has won a championship together. And that's Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, and the Kansas City Chiefs. It's crazy to think that no other team has done it, but the Pats had Brady, who won 6, but TB12 is obviously no longer in New England. Philly did it with Foles, but he's now in Chicago. The Broncos had Peyton, and he's chilling somewhere in retirement. Seattle, Pittsburgh, and New Orleans still have a quarterback and coach that has won it all before, but they all lack the core that has proven they can be a quality supporting cast during those 3 to 4 playoff games that it takes to win a championship. Aaron Rodgers is the only other Super Bowl winning quarterback that's still starting, but of course he has a whole new coach system and a completely different team around him than the one that won the title in 2011. Mahomes, Andy Reid, and the Chiefs defense are the only team that can go into a fourth quarter of a postseason game this year and know that they can rely on the people around them because they've done it and won it before. Not to mention, they have as much high-level talent as any team in the league. If they're fully healthy, this might be the most unstoppable team the NFL has seen. But they're already dealing with a plethora of injuries on their offensive line halfway into the season, and they started going out of their way with all this dynasty talk after only winning one championship so far. That type of mentality usually gets in the way of going back to back, which is why I believe the Chiefs are far from a lock to win it all again this year. So if not the Chiefs, who will win the Lombardi Trophy in 2020? That's what our take is about today. And B, why don't you start us off?
The Kansas City Chiefs boast a wild offense, obviously led by Patrick Mahomes, speedy Tyreek Hill, the do-it-all offensive threat, Travis Kelce, and of course they got that run game in Edwards-Helaire and now Le'Veon Bell. But the Kansas City Chiefs made a key acquisition in the 2019 offseason, acquiring safety, linebacker, pass rusher, aka do-it-all defensive force Tyrann Mathieu, who became the quarterback of the defense Kansas City has been lacking since they had Eric Berry. They never got the full experience with Eric Berry because he was often injured, whether it was cancer, Achilles, whatnot. But everyone's going to continue to remember that Chiefs offense as the leading force for the championship run. But if the defense didn't hold it down in the second half of the Super Bowl, an amazing season could have went to waste. But up north, another team made a trade last year as the Steelers acquired second-year player Minkah Fitzpatrick from the Miami Dolphins. And what seemed like a gift as the Steelers were keyed in on drafting a safety in the first round with that selection next year anyways. The Steelers have struggled with missed acquisitions at the position such as Sean Davis and Mike Mitchell, but Minkah, however, immediately added confidence and a demeanor to the Pitt defense that has been one of the league's best since he arrived early last season. The Steelers have been in plenty of close games throughout this season though, and when the tables are viewed, you'll see Minkah making plays on the ball at every single one of them. But this isn't only about Minkah. The Steelers boast elite players at every level of the defense. Let's start with the defensive front, as they have Cam Hayward, Stephon Tuitt, Tyson Alualu, TJ Watt, and Bud Dupree, which fills a unit that has led the league in sacks in each of the last 4 years and applies pressure like no other unit in the league. The addition of Avery Williamson was awesome for the defense, but Robert Spillane has played really well, and one of the most unheralded players in the league, Vince Williams, epitomizes what it is to be a Pittsburgh Steeler. He's aggressive, and he's one of the best blitzing linebackers in the game. But why am I talking about defense? Because the Steelers have consistently held strong leagues and games throughout the year. And when you look at Patrick Mahomes' tenure as a playoff quarterback, he's been in big league games, whether he was on the good side or the bad side. Let's think about last year when they made a 24-0 comeback against the Texans, then a 10-0 comeback against the Titans, and a 20-10 comeback in the Super Bowl versus San Francisco 49ers. But the one outlier was 2 years ago when he played the Patriots. They were down 14-0 and they were not able to come back and win that game. So the most disciplined and talented unit that they've played across that span, they couldn't find a way to beat. Sure, San Fran had a great defense last year, but at the end of the day, they still had Shanahan as their coach, and we know how that works out in Super Bowls. But the point is, you can only contain the Chiefs. You can't stop them. The Steelers have had plenty of close games that have come down to the defense having to close out the game during the 2-minute drill. Whether it was week 2 versus the Broncos, week 3 versus Houston, And even though they shitted on the Browns after having a hiccup versus all-pro looking wide receiver Travis Fulgham out of nowhere, but then they did it 3 consecutive weeks versus the Titans, Ravens, and Cowboys, where the defense found a way to lock down the game for that squad. And this defense simply just knows how to play with the lead, but they can also will the offense to victory at the same time. You need a defense that can apply pressure on Mahomes and turn turnovers into touchdowns. The Steelers' defense is full of ball-hawking, turnover-causing banshees that can help guide this team to success. And Mike Tomlin and the Steelers finally got that dominant defense back that guided them to those 2 championships in the 21st century. Big Ben has to utilize the wide array of weapons that he has, though, and the Steelers have to keep a consistent run game to keep the Chiefs off the field. You have to dominate the time of possession and pray the defense won't drive all over you. But while most teams would be praying, the Steelers wouldn't rather have it any other way.
Yeah, I think the Steelers are a great candidate, and while they're the only undefeated team remaining at the time of this recording, we both believed in Pittsburgh as a dark horse contender entering this year, with Vegas putting their odds around like the 10th best, and they've clearly proven up to the task so far. The defense is fierce, and they have a quarterback who has shined in the spotlight before. 2 major things that lead to teams that end up winning it all. The only thing that worries me about Pitt, though, is that young core on offense and a lack of playoff experience these past 2 years. If Pittsburgh can win that first or second playoff game, I think that'll really give them the confidence and momentum to go all the way. But I think that first or second round could be a real test for some of their young players who are relied upon to see if they're really ready for that pressure right from the jump. We'll see who they end up facing. But a team that has that playoff experience, and maybe it's bad experience because of how their seasons have ended the last 3 years, but the New Orleans Saints are a team that has that quarterback, the coach, the defense, and the playoff experience that can contend for a Super Bowl. And the biggest thing that I've seen is that many believe this is Drew Brees' final year. And we've seen Peyton Manning and Ray Lewis go out on a high note recently, so don't sleep on Brees doing the same thing. The 42-year-old really showed his age at the early going of the season, but that was really just adjusting to life without the most targeted and most ball-dominant player in league history. When Michael Thomas is in the lineup, the Saints are the most dangerous team in the NFC with the best running back receiver combo in the league. The defense has given up big plays and big moments at times and seems to always commit a crucial penalty on third downs or red zone possessions, so I wouldn't be surprised at all if New Orleans does suffer another brutal playoff loss, because that is what history has taught us. But this year could be different. Noah loaded up with Emmanuel Sanders, Malcolm Jenkins, and Quan Alexander at the deadline, who are all veterans and know what it takes to win big games. Defensive coordinators in the playoffs tend to be able to take away a team's opposing best player with a week of strategizing, but Kamara and Thomas are a handful even if they're double teamed. And the Saints have other weapons who can step up, like Sanders or Deontay Harris, one of the most underrated weapons in the game, and Taysom Hill, who seems to play his best in big games. So if the Saints can somehow avoid another last-minute playoff loss off of some bullshit, I'm sticking with my preseason prediction and saying the New Orleans Saints can be the team that KC should be most worried about and prevent them from winning back-to-back titles if they do end up playing in the championship.
Interesting. So we both went with 2 teams that have really struggled to get over the hump the last couple of years. The Steelers have not been able to make the playoffs since they had Antonio Brown in 2018. Obviously, the Saints have had frustrating playoff exits, whether it's from pass interferences or mistimed interceptions that go for touchdowns. But both of these teams are looking to get over the hump, and what's a better year to do it than in 2020? And I wonder if there's ever been a team that's gone 2 years in a row without making it to the playoffs and then finding a way to make it to the Super Bowl next year. I'm sure there have been a decent amount, or probably a couple, but the Steelers could be on the verge or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, we saw last year the fucking 49ers go from the second overall pick to minutes away from winning it all without any playoff experience in the Kyle Shanahan era. So, I mean, that kind of was groundbreaking in and of itself. And then the Eagles, when they won the Super Bowl, they had missed the playoffs the year before. So it has been, the law of playoff experience isn't 100% concrete, but it's definitely more likely for a team to win it all after having that playoff experience. And it's interesting that you mentioned Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown, because that dynamic that led Pittsburgh throughout the 2010s, even though they came up short of a title, is very similar to kind of what the Saints have in Alvin Kamara and Michael Thomas. Hopefully, neither of them have contract disputes or any diva-like personalities where it ends up culminating in the situation that happened in Pittsburgh. But when you have those 2 weapons, as we've seen with Pittsburgh, it really makes it hard for a team to stop them. The problem with Pittsburgh was Bell or Brown would always seem to get injured in those games that decide their season.
Exactly. I mean, the Triple Bs barely play with each other, especially in the playoffs. Somebody was always injured. There was always something going down. There was always an issue. But it seems like the Saints have kind of already got that out the way. whether it was players having issues with Drew Brees over the offseason for some of the statements he's made. We've seen Michael Thomas get in fights with his teammates. We've seen him get hurt. We've seen him go through some things. Obviously, Kamara's been the odd man out, but we're hoping he stays healthy. So it looks like the Saints might have already got past that little hump, hopefully.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because Saints have definitely gone through a lot of adversity already, and it seems like that's kind of can be the backbone of a team that ends up winning those close games in the playoffs and uses that adversity as a way to lift them over. I mean, in the biggest matchup, I should say, of the year so far in that Saints-Buccaneers Sunday Night Football with almost everyone in the nation picking the Bucs, the Saints made a big statement showing that they can overcome what's kind of been their issue of the first half. And with Michael Thomas, with a healthy roster, it's going to be difficult to see a team being able to beat them.
Absolutely. Now that you talk about adversity, it kind of makes me think about Malcolm Jenkins, who won a championship in New Orleans, also went to Philly and won a championship, and he did both of those on undervalued teams that weren't expected to win championships that year. Maybe Malcolm Jenkins can be that delivering force. And, he's a high-energy player. He seems like a high-character player that kind of has that quarterback of the defense type feel. Obviously, he can't play at the same level as he did earlier in his career, but he could be a big difference in the season.
Yeah, for sure. So there you go. You got the Steelers, you got the Saints, Chiefs. Look out. So lock it in. That's our take for the day, and you can find all Pro Sports takes on prosportsoutlook.com, or even better, if you're already subscribed to Pro Sports Outlook's YouTube channel.
And that wraps up this episode of Pro Sports Takes. And remember, we encourage everyone to go ahead and leave comments about the player or even the team you want us to discuss. Tweet us at PSO_sports or simply use the hashtag ProSportsTakes. And we'll continue to monitor what's hot so we can give it a spot on our future show.